Hello everyone there. The general prologue to the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer is consisting all the descriptions, characteristics and the idiosyncrasies of different travelers who were traveling with Chaucer and they were on their way to the great pilgrimage. So in this lecture I'll be just briefly discussing all their characteristics. So let's find out who is the first character. The first character is the knight, and he belongs to the military career. He is the leader of the procession, or you may say that he is the most prestigious character in all the Canterbury Tales. He is the epitome of gentility. Epitome means a person or a thing which is a perfect example of some quality. So the knight here is the perfect example of a gentle behavior. He has love for some ideals. Chaucer tells us that he likes love, freedom, truth, courage, chivalry. These were some of his ideals. The knight has battled the Muslims in Egypt, Spain, Turkey, Lithuania, and Russia. And in spite of his elevated position, the knight is never proud or arrogant of his position, but he is always meek and gentle in his ways. And the long tunic that he is wearing, which is covering his whole body, it is made of coarse cloth and it is also rust stained, which shows us that the knight is returning from some battle. So this was the first character, and it is showing us the military group. The second character is the squire, and he is the son of the knight. He is 20 years old, and this character has been described in a very different sort of way from the knight. So let's find out. He also belonged to the military career, and the knight at that time used to serve and assist the knight. The squire is lovely and lusty bachelor. He is athletic and strong, so we come to know that he is physically fit to be appointed as a knight. He has curly hair. He is the fresher than the month of May. He has also fought some battles in Flanders, Ottawa, Picardy, to win his lady's grace. Now these lines I have taken directly from the text. So we come to know here that the squire is more interested in gaining the approval or the favor of his lady rather than the knight. He also likes singing, playing the flute, riding a horse, and writing songs, jousting, and dancing. The third character that we have also belongs to the military career. He is the assistant of the knight and the squire. He just accompanies them. He has a green coat and he is wearing a hood with a bracelet on his arm. He has short hair, a brown face. He wears a Christopher medal and has a hunter's horn. He wears peacock arrows that are not droopy and a bow, and he also has a sword and a dagger. So Joseph says that he is a forester. The fourth character is the most developed, or you can say that she is the most well-known character in all the Canterbury Tales. Her name is Madame Eglantine, and the prioress at that time she used to be the head of the nuns. So we expect this character to be very mild, sober, and serious sort of character, but she's presented in a very different way by Joseph. She is very simple, coy, and shy kind of lady. She has large forehead. Large forehead in that time in the Middle Ages was considered to be a symbol of beauty. She speaks French with a terrible accent and sings the liturgy straight through her nose. She had good table manners. Whenever she eats, she never let a morsel or a drop of water fall on her cloth. So she is very conscious about table manners. She is also very charitable and piteous. Whenever she sees a mouse trapped in a cage, she began to cry. She is busy in worldly matters, worldly affairs. Her clothes are richly bedecked, and her cold rosary says, "Love conquers all." So here, the love which is mentioned, it is not divine love; it is the love and the relationship between a man and the woman. So we know that the prioress is the head of the nuns, and she belongs to the ecclesiastical character or the church character, but she is very secular in her ways. The next character is a monk, and monk also belongs to the church. He is the head of his monastery. Again, we hope and expect him to be very religious in his ways. But here, the monk is also presented in a very utterly different way. He is interested in hunting. He kept many elegant horses and greyhounds. So, monk at that time, the duty of the monk to be religious, and he should had have to live a life of devoted to the religion. But here we see that the monk is more interested in the horses and the greyhounds, which is I think that which is the biggest irony. He did not care for all things, especially the Saint Benedict. The Saint Benedict was a religious reformer and a visionary, and he thought that a monk should devote his life to the well-being of his monastery. But the monk that we see here, he did not care for all things, or whatever the Saint Benedict used to say. The next character is the friar. The friar, at that time, the duty of a friar was to beg for the poor and the lepers. He had to live a life of poverty and humility. But here the friar again is a very different sort of character. His name is Hubert. He is very wanton and merry. Wanton means flirty type of a man. He had connections with a worthy woman of time. So you can see the irony here. The friar at that time was supposed to beg for the poor, and he must had connections with the poor. But we see that the friar is more interested in worthy woman of the town. He uses his position to steal. He is a crooked businessman. He woos women. And Chaucer also says that whatever the money he is gaining, he spends this money on buying expensive gifts for the women. He and every host and gay barman also better than beggars and lepers did he know. He was well familiar with all the ladies of the town. The next character is the merchant, and merchant here is representing the upcoming middle class. He wears a cloak of motley. Motley means colorful, and a Flemish beaver hat that has a forked bread, which at that time period it was the current fashion, having a forked beard. He is in debt, no doubt, no doubt, from his clothes or from his belongings. He seems to be a very rich or wealthy person, but he is in debt and he has to borrow the money from his friends and relatives. He is in unhappily he is engaged in an unhappily marriage, and he also tells us a tale of a person who ignored his wife's advice and afterwards he regrets it. He is also representing the upcoming middle class. The next character is the student of philosophy, and he is clerk. He wears threadbare clothes. His clothes are threadbare, which shows us that whatever the money he is gaining, he is spending it on his books. And he's very pensive, antisocial in his ways. He is a poor student of philosophy. His words are wise. He speaks very little, but whenever he speaks it in a very wise and brief way. But all that he might borrow from a friend on books and learning, he would swiftly spend. Whatever the money he is gaining from his friends or relatives or whatever the people he know, he is spending all that money on his books. He has so many books of Aristotle as well. The next character is the man of law, and the man of law is also representing the upcoming middle class. He has risen to the rank of a judge. He is a wealthy man who owns much land. Now, much land ownership at that time was considered a basis of wealth and prestige in that culture and society. He is not an aristocrat. He is also a man of great reverence and dignity. He wears an unostentatious coat and ties with a circle and a belt of silk with small stripes on it. The next character is a Franklin, and the great or the chief attribute about this character is that he dines on everything related to the food and drink. He likes to eat and drink. He has white beard. He is gentry landowner. His house seemed to snow meat and drink. So his basic preoccupation is with the food. He likes to eat and drink. So Chaucer says that his house seemed to snow meat and drink. He is the follower or the believer of the philosophy of Epicurus. Now Epicurus was a philosopher who used to think that perfect happiness is possible through pleasure seeking. So this Franklin was great believer in the philosophy of Epicurus. He is also known as Saint Julian. Saint Julian was a saint of hospitality. He wears a vibrant red coat and a hat, and his silk purse looks fairly honored. Now, this character belongs to the wealthy members of the society. So he is wearing a very well kind of dress. The next characters are five, and they are called as five craft workers in all the Canterbury Tales, and they include a haberdasher. Haberdasher means a small dealer who used to deal in small objects like zips, buttons, and threads, which were used for stitching. The next character is carpenter. Carpenter is the person who mends the wooden objects, and weaver, a dyer, and tapester, all described together. They are representing the new social class, and they are also representing the feelings of brotherhood and fraternity. They are wearing finest clothes and weapons, so we come to know that in the past time maybe they belong to the lower class, but now they have risen to the wealthy members of the society. The next character is the cook, and the cook was the servant of the five craft workers which we have just read. His name is Roger. He is a member of the middle class. He has good compliments. Everybody gives him good compliments about his food, but the very nasty thing about him is that he has ulcer on his knee, and nobody would like to have such a cook in their kitchen who just cook for them, and he has a leg with pus pouring out of uh, his leg, which gives a very nasty and disgusting image. The next character is the physician, and physician is the doctor of medicine. He is also a man with important social standing. He is a learned man, he is an astrologer, and he is well versed in horoscopes and magic natural. So we can see the irony here, or a little bit of humor, that the physician should have read all the important authorities of his time, medical authorities of his time, but here the philosopher, the physician is more interested in reading astrology, and he used to look up at the planets and the stars while curing his patients. He has love for gold for monetary benefits, obviously. The next character is the most developed character in all the Canterbury Tales, and she is very well known. Her name is Alison. She is wife of Bath. She married five times, and she has widely traveled the world. So we come to know that she is very sociable in her ways. She likes to travel the world, and the small journey towards the Canterbury Tales, towards the Canterbury, seems to be a very little excursion for her. She is a fun-loving lady. She is gap-toothed woman. We come to know that at that time it was considered also a symbol of sexuality. She is a deaf lady. She surpasses the clothmaker of Ypres and Ghent. So we come to know that she is also a very good seamstress and a very independent kind of lady. Wife of Bath is a headstrong, bold woman of her time. She is self-determined, and she's also an expert in giving the advices related to the love and marriage. The next character is a parson, and this character is presented in a very idealistic way. He is a religious figure. He is performing a sacred job. He barely makes any money. Joseph says that no doubt he is performing a great job in the society, because he also tells us that the main reason of parson joining this journey is just to bring other people to the salvation, or to help them in different sorts of way. So no doubt this parson is doing great job, but he is barely making any kind of money. And Joseph also tells us that he lacks in personal belongings or wealth, but he is rich in righteousness. He gives to the poor, and he is a shepherd of souls. The next character is the brother of Parson. He also belongs to the middle class, lower class. He dresses very modestly. He is a devout man of God. He loves God. He loves his people. He also pays his tithes. The next character is a Miller, and Miller is a thief, or we can say he steals wine from his customers, and he also overcharges his customer. His name is Robin. He's a brawny man with a red beard. He has a wart on his nose. He likes wrestling. He has power and strength. He is also accomplished piper. He likes to play jokes and recite poetry. The next character is a Manciple, and Manciple, he is described as a shrewd, rude, and deceptive person. He is willing to bribe people even at the risk of their health. And the duty of the Manciple at that time He was in the charge of providing provisions, food, and supplies to institutions like school or monastery or some church, and like offering an already heavily intoxicated cook more wine to get him to forget that it is the cook. The next character is the Reeve, and Reeve, at that time, the Middle Ages, he was considered as a manager at some farm, land, or some kind of other lands. He can estimate the years of his master's crops and livestock. He is also a first-rate carpenter. He is deceased looking. His legs looks very straight sticks. People beneath him were afraid of him. He hated the miller, so it caused a lot of trouble when Miller told a tale of a carpenter which was insulting the carpenters. Reeve was at very great anger. The next character is the Sumner. Sumner is someone who used to call people to the church for confessing their crimes. He is a lecher, dishonest, and generally unethical. He also likes to drink. Sumner is disdainful of the church teachings. He accepts brides, he seduces girls, his face is covered in sores, and Chaucer says that no ointment in the world could heal his face. He likes to eat smelly vegetables like onions, garlics, and leeks. The next character is a partner, and partner used to travel from one countryside to another countryside, and he used to sell the partners pardons. But this character is also presented in a very strange way, because this character is a deceiver. He used to deceive people. He wears in relics are pieces of cloths, bones, and other objects. But he used these relics or this piece, these holy things, as trade of commodity. He claims to have marriage veil and a piece of Saint Peter's sails. So this character is also presented in a very different way. He uses the holy objects and the secret objects as commodities of trade, and he deceives people. So this is the end of this presentation. I hope that you liked it and it helped you in gaining some kind of understanding related to these characters. Thanks a lot.